Hello, good morning, everyone. Today our session is sixth session. Today we are going talking about the analysis database. It's mean ERD. Do you know what is the meaning ERD? ERD it's mean entity relation diagram. Sometimes this is entity set how to describing the data and object. That's why it's really important when you would like to make some database. Before you create the database, you have to design ERD first, because this is the basically how to know how to create the database as well, like that. There are notation from the ERD. There are a lot of symbol. When you would like to start to make a ERD design, you have to understanding about the every single symbol like this. This shape it's mean entity, or in Indonesia entitas ya. So it's mean untuk mewakili suatu objek dapat dibedakan dengan objek lain. It's mean to make differences between other entity. For example, entity. Entity it's mean some object in the reality. For example, the student, doctor, for example, course, or yeah, exercise like that. And the next one, we call it ellipse. Ellipse in ERD, we call it attribute. Attribute is mean like, for example, the human. For example, the human, it's mean the entity, and the attribute, it's what the human use. For example, the attribute human is t-shirt, pants, shoes, and ring. For example, necklace, glasses, or others like that. So in the RD, we have the diamond. The diamond it's mean relation. So this relation to the function is connected between entity, between other entity. So without the relation, it's can't connected. It's can't. Uh, we don't know what is the function like that. And from the relation, there are three kind relation. The firstly is one to one. When the symbol one to one, uh, the symbol is like this, like narrow. The meaning it's mean one to one, and one to zero, one to many. The shape like one the left, for example, in the left here, the left narrow here, it's mean uh, one, and only only one line, it's mean many, and here many to many. Okay, next one. The component diagram RD, there are three components, namely the first is entity, and the second attribute, and then relationship. What is the entity? The entity it's mean object in the reality. In Indonesia, objek di dunia nyata, and it can be make it differences between other objective. For example, mahasiswa, it can be called it entity. Barang or product, it's called it entity. Fashion, books, entity. And then now we're talking about the attribute. There are kind of the attribute. For example, the first attribute is key, attribute key, or we really famous we call it primary key. Primary key sometime it have to define some attribute. It's really what is the meaning? Shape the from the what is the name? Recounting like 0, 1, 2, 3 like that. For example, in mahasiswa or the student, the primary key have to be to use NIM or ID student. It have to be the primary key. For example, your ID card, the password, or others. It have to be counting atau angka ya kita sebut angka. And then the next one is attribute simple. What's the meaning attribute simple? Attribute simple, there are a lot of meaning. Just attribute, for example, from the human, we using the t-shirt, for example, the size or the color, that's the simple. There is no meaning. But the attribute multi-value, the multi-value, it's mean there are a lot of meaning. For example, when you have the number, for example, in the attribute entity, you have several number. For example, you have the number, so the attribute have to be signed in with the double circle, double ellipse. I will give you the sample in the next slide. Nah, the next one it's attribute derivative. Derivative it's mean this is the sample the derivative. Derivative it's mean like it's really not have to be put in there. It's like useless. There are a lot of optional you can put uh, to be the attribute or no, doesn't matter. That's really not really important. Okay, this is the sample. Okay, the person is the attribute and the name, address, SSN, birthday, and age and hobbies is the attribute. And now we're talking about primary key, attribute kunci. Primary key, it's me, I call it counting. For example, 0, 7, blah, 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 blah. It's mean a primary key. It's like when you calling someone, you have to know the key. For example, in database, without the primary key, the database can't call the primary key. They can't call the person. For example, here the database want to call the person. How to call the person? The database person. The solution is have to be you have to call the SSN because without the SSN you can't call the person. Okay, understand? Okay, and the next one is the attribute composite. The meaning attribute composite is mean there are sub attribute. For example, you have a name and you have the first, the last, and the middle name. You can using the attribute composite. For example, you put your address to be your attribute, and the address including the street, the city, and block your home, the number of your home. Yeah, doesn't matter. It's mean of attribute composite or gabungan. We call it in Indonesia gabungan. And then here, when you use your primary key, you have to put the underline to be designed to make differences between other attribute. Okay, and the next one here it's attribute derivative. It's not really important, or it's not really important to put there, but if you want to put there, that is okay. It's normally. And the last one is attribute optional, or it's mean for example you have hobbies, but your hobbies is you have a lot of hobbies. For example, volleyball, basketball, or futsal, or badminton sometimes. And I give you another sample. Uh, your number. When you have to attribute optional, you have to put double ellipse here to make differences between other. For example, number or email. you have two or three numbers or three emails, so that's why you have to put double ellipse. Okay, you understand here? Okay, next one. What is relation? Relation, yeah, it's really mostly famous in our reality. Relation is mean connecting, connected between one on one. For example, in relation in human, connecting between one person or other and other people like that. That's its connection. And then there are several relation. The firstly is one to one. One to one, it's connecting between, for example, every single student have one ID student. So that's why we call it one to one. Satu ke satu antara mahasiswa dengan NIM-nya. And the one to many, it's mean like satu ke banyak. For example, the lecture with the students in the class, right? Only once lecture and a lot of students. That call it relation one to many. And then the third is many to many. For example, the students and the course in the college. Okay, now we will talking about the sample. You have to understanding about how to make the ERD as well, like this. I give you the sample here. We have the case in the hospital. Here we know. Here it's patient, the entity patient. The patient have several attributes like ID patient, birthday address, and the name, number, telephone, and others. And the patient in the hospital will stay in the what's the name, the hospital, but the room have several attributes. For example, the price, facility, capacity, and kind of the room. For example, like class 1, class 2, class 3, or VVIP and others like that. And the name of rooms. And the last one is really important, the number of room. It's that important. Yeah, the patient connected to the room. They stay here in Indonesia. We call it menempati. Pasien menempati kamar. So that's why the relation it's mean menempati. Stay there, stay the room, and then the patient it will be before the patient will check by the doctor. Here, the doctor have ID doctor, name doctor, specialist, phone number, and address. The doctor will check the patient. That's why the connection, the relation, it's mean check here, memeriksa. And then the patient have the assistant. The assistant is the nurse, and the nurse have attribute too. They have IDs nurse, the name of nurse, and gender and phone. And here phone you can see here double ellipse. It's mean the number telephone. It can be several number. So you have to put the double ellipse. Okay, the nurse it's take of care the patient. Here the relation at take of care or merawat, yeah, and then after that, the patient it will be arsip arsip the history about the disease, or in Indonesia we call it rekam medis, because rekam medis have a lot of attribute too. It could be put here, put attribute. You can see. Wait. I will try to zoom in. Okay, you can see here ID recommends tanggal keluhan, or because why keluhan here it's double ellipse because sometimes uh, people or patient have a lot of disease, that's why double ellipse like that. So okay, and the last one here it's what is obat, come on. Medicine. Okay, the last one is medicine. Medicine, it's exactly uh, half the code of medicine. It could be half the code series. That's why we call it primary key because every single medicine have the code, the name of code and kind of medicine, and for example the expire and the year of production, like that. Okay, so here the relation, it's consumption by patient, that is the relation. Okay, and here from the connection between the medicine is the doctor define or decided what kind of medicine the patient have to be consumption, like that. So that's it. That's the sample, the ARD. I hope so. You can make it some design of ARD. I hope this material can be understanding about you. Thank you very much for this session. See you then. Bye.